And now we're going to head to, of all places, Oklahoma. That's where a legislative committee has overwhelmingly voted to ban an advanced placement or an AP history class. You might say, well, Rich, why are we talking about Oklahoma high school? Well, it deals with the whole question of patriotism and American exceptionalism. The guy you just saw there, State Representative Dan Fisher, who's a Republican, introduced an emergency legislation that would prohibit every public school teacher across the state from teaching the course. You heard me right. Fisher says the history lessons are unpatriotic and focus too much on the negative things about America as opposed to the good things. He says the course fails to teach American exceptionalism. And as I see my educator to my left grimace here, yes, so that's happening here. Now, for those of you who are fans of Newsroom, you know, that Aaron Sorkin program on HBO, well, I'm going to play a clip from the pilot of that show. I believe it was 2010 or thereabouts when this first aired. And in it, you see the character who is the anchor of what was the prominent mythical newscast on this network, when he's asked in a room about what's the best thing about America, or is America, I think, what was it?
What makes it the best nation?
What makes it the best nation in the world? And it was just a statement, so they had to give the rationale for it. And here again is the answer that he delivered, this anchor, and then we're going to talk about it on the other side.
Can you say why America is the greatest country in the world?
There is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality, 3rd in median household income, number 4 in labor force, and number 4 in exports. We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita, number of adults who believe angels are real, and defense spending. Sure used to be. We stood up for what was right. We fought for moral reasons. We passed laws, struck down laws for moral reasons. We waged wars on poverty, not poor people. We sacrificed. We cared about our neighbors. We put our money where our mouths were, and we never beat our chest. We built great big things, made ungodly technological advances, explored the universe, cured diseases, and we cultivated the world's greatest artists and the world's greatest economy. We reached for the stars, acted like men. We aspired to intelligence. We didn't belittle it. It didn't make us feel inferior. We didn't identify ourselves by who we voted for in the last election, and we didn't scare so easy. First step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one. America is not the greatest country in the world anymore.
I guarantee you that was not on Rush Limbaugh's favorite episodes, nor Rudy Giuliani's. But Andrew, does it make it unpatriotic not to teach American exceptionalism in high school? Does it harm our kids? Does it take away from the country?
First of all, there's no politician in the country who would say the things that news anchor
just said. No anchor would say the things that guy said.
Right, and the real question, I think, is, and yes, I think AP history classes have to focus on the negative moments in American history as well as the positives. They're part of our history. The real question is how much and how squarely can we look at negative parts of our country, negative parts from the past, negative issues that we're dealing with in the present, and what stomach does the American public have for those conversations? This is what brings it back to the question of President Obama and Rudy Giuliani and the questions about American exceptionalism. If all people want is a cheerleader for what the United States is and what it does, to my mind, that's a disingenuous view of the country. It also doesn't jive with any politician everywhere who always comes up with a complaint about the country and here's how to fix it. And I think we do ourselves a disservice if we restrict our conversations to only cheerleading and only positive things.
And we can debate politically, you know, if it helps you to an end to say these things as a politician, whether bringing up the Crusades as the president did, or when talking about extremism, we're also talking, obviously, or delivering the speech in Cairo. We can debate that. However, you're in academia, right? trying to scrub out the parts of the country we don't like, and especially an advanced placement history class in high school, I mean, that gets a little scary, doesn't it?
It does, and we should be clear that Oklahoma is just one of several states that have,
Yes.
Oklahoma has gone further than most of the other states, but Colorado is another state who has played with this. So this is not just restricted, it is a widespread concern. And in my mind, I think the real question is, how do you define exceptionalism? What does it mean for, I think America is exceptional. And part of what I think makes it exceptional is that we've lasted so long and we've corrected for issues and problems. And so to decide that exceptionalism means only to focus on X, Y, or Z is, I think, to miss what makes the United States exceptionalism. I have to tell you, in my class, we were just reading Thurgood Marshall had a great in 1987 speech at the bicentennial in which he said he wasn't going to celebrate the founders for what they created, but what they created that was allowed to change and be fixed and to be amended so that we could live in the country we have today. And so I do think it's a question of how do you define exceptionalism, and then how do you teach that? I have a son who's taking this very class right now in New York. He would be very happy, by the way, if they would cut it out entirely right now. But they started the semester, actually, interestingly, by talking about whether, in fact, the curriculum was appropriate, and these debates, which I thought was incredibly interesting.
Well, what kind of stuff is in the curriculum that would be considered unpatriotic by this Oklahoma legislator?
Well, I imagine it has things, anything that, the way I read what this legislator has said and other ones, is that anything negative about the United States, the curriculum is too negative. So it focuses too much, so, for instance, on our history of slavery. You know, my son is just reading Frederick Douglass. It focuses too much on that history and not enough on all the positive advancements.
Or Manifest Destiny.
Exactly.
And you know what's funny for me? One of the most exceptional things I think about this country is, in certain America's lifetime, they lived in the Jim Crow South, and they saw Barack Obama elected president. Now, to whitewash the first half of what I said misses the whole point about what's so exceptional about how this president in this country with this history that we share got there. And I don't know, I remember the same debate in many ways in Germany after World War II. And I mean, I have relatives over there, and there was a big debate as to whether or not the Holocaust should be in the history books because of all the painful, and they said, of course it did, but there were a lot of resistance, and for a long time, I'm going into the 70s even, it wasn't in the history books because it was too much of an ugly and a painful chapter. But how the heck are you supposed to know about where you are and who you are if you don't know about everything, the bad stuff included, right?
Richard, this has got to be one of the dumbest arguments that I've ever heard in my life.
But it's not. But by the way, it's not just this little thing we found crazy. It's not spreading other places.
It's spreading. But this is one lawmaker in Oklahoma.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a growing movement. I understand, but it's ridiculous. How do you whitewash history? And frankly, I believe America is exceptional as well. And I love America. It's a great country. But if you want to know how we're viewed around the world, I suggest that you go outside the country and talk to some other citizens about how they see America, just to get perspective. And so, like, for example, we can't rewrite history and say, oh, America is number one when it comes to education. I suggest you go to Japan and see those kids in the classroom and see what they're doing as far as education. Not to say that one is better than the other, but this argument is just dumb. How do you go, oh, we only want to talk about, oh, let's change what happened with slavery. Don't teach the kids. I mean, come on.
For me, the kicker out of this is, if you said to that same lawmaker, I guarantee you, tell me about what you think of the Taliban or what you think of some of the extremist elements. What do you think they're doing in the schools where they want to have Sharia law? What do you think they're allowing to be taught, right? Do you think they're allowing for any debate or conversation about some of the atrocities that have been committed or some of the ugliness? No, this purity of thought or whatever, or that if you're not with us, love it or leave it kind of thing. There's some scary parallels, I guess.
Yeah. Rudy Giuliani, who we started the whole conversation with, got elected by complaining about the mayor of New York and saying that he could do a better job. That's what you do. You complain about but it's the equivalent of sticking your fingers in your ear when you don't like what somebody's saying because you think it's negative. I mean, would you criticize? We love our family members, but we criticize them when we think they've done something wrong. That's part of our love. for the people who are closest to us. The equivalent of that politically, you can't say anything negative about the country, and it's not just in our politics or even in our history lessons. Ask any school teacher. Anytime a teacher complains about a kid these days to their parents, calls home, the parent calls up and is like, well, why aren't you getting along with my kid? What are you doing that my kid does? I mean, I've heard more frustrated school teachers because people don't want to hear negative things that hit close to home. I don't know when we've gotten so, I want to say neutered, but I'm not sure that's the right term. It's just
arrogant.
Well, and no, I was just going to say, and I think what's so frustrating is I think it does underestimate young people. Young people are very bright, and they have the ability to read things and to make their own decision. I think it does them a great disservice to suggest that they can only be spoon-fed part of American history. They are discerning, and you will find that some come out very liberal, some come out very conservative, and everywhere in between. And to suggest that, you know, you're somehow going to mold them, I think does them a great disservice because they're not that easily malleable.
We ask you at home, head over to Facebook and Twitter and sound off on our question today as it relates to American exceptionalism. We want to know whether you think America is the greatest country in the world. I happen to think it is. But I'm very curious, you saw that speech that was delivered on the newsroom pilot there. Where do you come down on this? All right, when we come back, Department of Homeland Security funding, it runs out at the end of the week, and America faced with a threat from yet another terror network. Will congressional lawmakers reach a budget agreement before DHS shuts down? If not, what could that then mean here for the country here and our Homeland Security for that matter? We'll be right back with more on that.